Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Essential Libertarians, bringing you the tools you need for self-governance. My name is Kareem, and I have my awesome co-host, once again, Daniel Betro. Daniel, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Pretty awesome, pretty awesome. Bringing in the new year with some interesting news. I'm going to do a lot of different stuff and a lot of different, stories that are important. But first, I just want to say, rest in peace, Betty White. Actually, did not expect the news to see that today, and now I'm kind of like, wow, that's pretty crazy. So with that being said, also on Twitter, I do want to mention if people are interested, the Spotify episode is out with Dr. Robert Malone and Joe Rogan. I think that's important because the new CEO of Twitter banned Robert Malone. And as far as
Like
I'm
right before this episode, right? It seemed like he was banned literally right before this one came out, which I don't think was coincidental, to say the least.
no, and it's kind of messed up to me because I can even understand someone saying, "Okay, Alex Jones is polarizing figure." Okay, I wouldn't argue that.
Yeah.
I think he should be banned, but okay. Donald Trump's polarizing figure. I'm
Yeah.
not going to
I mean,
argue.
I don't think he should be banned either. I mean, he's
I
the
think he
goddamn
should be banned
president,
either.
of the free world. But still, I get it. He is polarizing, and he
He
is
is
he
polarizing.
is Trump. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and I get that. And I haven't looked through all of his tweets. Maybe there was something messed up there. Um, Either way, but Dr. Robert Malone, I don't. He seems like a very soft-spoken dude. He doesn't seem like the guy who like runs in a building and says a bunch of stuff. And he does. So to me, that platform is just kind of gone. And I'm going to bring up something with Dr. Malone here in a second. But if you want to keep the Ron Paul revolution going, if you want to keep the ideals of Murray Rothbard alive, if you want to keep your individual sovereignty, then you need to go to the LP MisesCaucus.com, bring in the new year with some liberty. Because we all need that. Whether you're in the Western or the Eastern world, more liberty cannot hurt. So no more wars, no more lockdowns, no more bailouts, no more mandates. Make that a reality. You can do that by putting your first, last name, email address, phone number, and state here and be a part of the decentralized revolution. So I want to talk about, this because it's interesting to me that the powers that be, and I forget the CEO of Twitter, the new CEO, but I don't really feel like Jack Dorsey is was in charge of Twitter. And I can say that confidently now. Kind of like how a lot of people argue, like Biden or Trump, are they in charge? I really don't think so. I think there are.
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, it's not like it's a hidden conspiracy, Kareem. And I say this to everyone. It's like the thing with startup and companies in general, whether it be, limited liability corporations, whether it be S corps, whether it be sole proprietorships, is that businesses tend to sort of expand exponentially, but they always expand incrementally as well. So like, in the beginning of your business, it's going to be really rare that you start a business off with, say, thousands of people, especially if it's a brand new startup with a brand new idea. Now, if you're going into something public, which has been sort of a private business for a while, that's different. But if you're just starting something out fresh, you're going to have a very finite amount of employees. I mean, unless you got a lot of, money to spend on employees right away, like look at restaurants, and then incrementally grow over time. And the thing with Twitter is that because it is tech, and because tech in the last 10, 15 years has just been, growing exponentially, though, as far as the market cap goes for not only Twitter, but Facebook, as far as the financials go, as far as the actual, the innovation of tech that has changed. Like, just look at from Instagram in 2010 to like where we are now, and how tech is just, I mean, it's exploded in the last
Oh
10
yeah,
years. but but
yeah.
but not only that, the fact that users have gone up in all of the platforms, and then eventually, before you know it, you have this thing that was supposed to be made for people to tweet in taxis in New York City and make sort of jokes, Then it's this thing where you have politicians talking on it, and you have some of the most powerful people in the world on this platform. And the next thing you know, you got a board of people who, you have to make sure that you stay true to your shareholders to some degree. You have to make sure that there are certain things in place that give people confidence in your stock, and that there's not, you're not erratic in the way you are. And the next thing you know, you're not doing anything but watching the company run, and those who are sort of leading the charge. So I think he was a spokesperson for Twitter. I think he came up with the idea of Twitter. I think he tried to I think he tried to keep his idea of Twitter as long as he could, but I think he was better off getting out 8 years ago. And he said this, he said that, he doesn't have, the respect for founders who stay in the business after the business becomes something completely different, right? And he admitted this. I think he should have got out a long time ago. But we've seen Dorsey tweet, the anatomy of the state. He's a sort of decentralized, I wouldn't say anarchist, but sort of anarcho-capitalist type, freedom, liberty type. But he has been beholden to Twitter, whether he likes it or not. So I think he could join the fight. Like, I really think.
I think he could.
In the next 2 years, I think with what he's doing with Square, what he's doing with Bitcoin on the decentralized financial side, and I have problems with Square, but he's also integrating cryptocurrency into things like Cash App, which is amazing, letting people who are really young, like if you want to talk about young people and you want to talk about young people going on TikTok and all of these useless, very psychologically damaging, social medias. But the thing with Cash App is like, everyone has a Cash App now, all the young kids, right? And then on that Cash App, it's so easy to just put money into a stock. So I'm like, when it comes to like investing at an early age, I am so into that. And I have a lot of people who disagree with me, and they can't stand. There's this sort of this casual contempt among investors, especially investors who've been investing for a while. They don't like the fact that the younger generation gets to invest early, because it is true they are more emotional when they're investing, and when you have a lot of younger investors, the stock market tends to be more volatile, as we've seen in the last 3 years. So you have a lot of investors who are in this game, been in the game for a while, and they're like not for it. They don't think children should be investing. They don't think children should be in the stock market, and they think it should be, at 18. And I get why they have that sort of contempt, but at the end of the day, I want people to join the fight as early as possible, because the younger they are, they invest, the quicker they get financial independence, and the more likely they are to be free and stand up. Because when you have money, when you're higher on the socioeconomic hierarchy, when you're higher on that, you are more likely to stand up and fight for your freedom, right? It's hard to fight when you barely have food, when you're struggling to make rent. So that's why I think, like, within all this, the liberty fight, the fight against tyranny, the fight against mandates, I think at the root out of all of it, the way that we win, the side of liberty, the side of freedom, the side of being able to pursue what you do, right? And individualist to a certain degree, right? But like at the root of all of it is a decentralized financial system, and a financial system which can bring wealth to the most amount of people possible.
Yeah, and you made a really good point there, in the fact that young people can start investing early, and I think that's great, because then they can learn profit and loss, they can learn how things work, and you know what that'll also cause. They'll say, hey, they'll understand value, they'll understand prices, so they'll be less susceptible to certain ideas such as market capitalism, all that stuff. But I want to get back to Dr. Malone, because he made some pretty I'm not going to go through the whole Rogan episode, but I think it's kind of worth it. I didn't even go through it yet. I didn't have time. But
it's up? It's up now?
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
People were throwing Spotify links, so I need to take some time to watch it.
I'll probably watch that after this, as a matter of fact.
He had a pretty good quote: first time in history that the ineffectiveness of a medicine is being blamed on those who haven't taken it. And I agree with him, because I've never heard ever, and I know a lot of older doctors and stuff like that, other than a very few like crazy cases, I guess you could say maybe secondhand smoke, but I've never heard like, oh, well, if someone's not doing something or someone's not involved with something, then they can get hurt, or they're causing the problem of this. And I think that's something pretty profound. Is I don't like being blamed, and I don't think other people like being blamed.
It's like, I took this, and because I took this, I want you to take it. And if I get hurt, I get hurt because of the actions that you made. It's Stockholm syndrome is what it is. It's like, so you get this vaccine, the vaccine's supposed to be this. It turns out it's not this. And then it turns out it's definitely not this. And then it turns out that it doesn't, I'm not going to say it doesn't do anything at all, but what I'm going to say is the sort of the thing that you were sold in the beginning is not what it is now. And you're like, that's not fair. I mean, that's not fair. It's not what I was promised. It's not what I was told. So now I want other people to get what I got because I got it because I shouldn't have got it. And I didn't listen. I didn't listen to myself. I was peer pressured into getting it. So now I want to peer pressure other people into getting it, which is very toxic, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Aaron Rodgers said, if you can't question science, it's propaganda.
It's propaganda. Yeah. I saw that.
And, yeah. I'm really liking Aaron Rodgers.
That's not my style.
Right. Now, Dr. Malone, I'll just pull this out. I'm not super familiar with this platform. I thought some people might be interested, especially like me and you, Daniel, since there's been some problems with, Twitter and some of these, sites. I think Steve Bannon, I'm not even a fan of Bannon, but Steve Bannon mentioned he had the Getter thing. And for the new year, I know people are looking at different platforms. So I just wanted to play this real quick. Dr. Malone's talking about what he's doing with that. I thought it was interesting.
So I'm going to be using Getter for that thread.
Getter? What is that?
That's a Twitter alternative.
Oh.
You don't know about Getter? Yeah, no, it's
been waiting for one though.
Yep. So I'm using Getter. And again at RW Malone MD.
Is it spelled like Getter?
Gettr.
You want it, Jamie? No? Gettr?
Yeah. So Getter is branded as the Twitter killer. It is explicitly a Twitter alternative.
Is it all right-wing crazy people?
I forgot I'm on this. I need to get on this. I made an account when it first came out.
It's
a lot of people that make.
It started off. It's where they are committed to not censoring.
Beautiful. Well, I support that entirely.
That's not my style.
Right.
So I'm going to be using Getter for that.
That's not like a huge news story or anything, but I thought people might like to know in case, because I actually have made the argument when it comes to tech. Okay, you have YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. Facebook, YouTube, which we're on now and stuff like that, they're pretty solid. But like I've always thought, like Twitter's not that okay. It's billions, but Twitter could actually pretty fall over. It's out of all of them, to me, it's kind of like the house made of straw that the wolf can blow over quickly. He's not going to blow. The other ones are brick houses like that. And I do see useful functions to them, even though I don't like the way they're being run. I see. But yeah, Twitter to me could easily, there's Gab and I think there's Getter. So I think people who use those might be interested because I'm not a huge fan of Twitter, especially after they banned Malone and stuff. So I'm hoping people like Tim and all those people that I like watching their shows also get one so I can talk to them. And if you're interested in that, Daniel, I thought you might be. It's not like a news story, but I thought you might be.
Yeah, I did make a Getter originally. I just have to get back on there and figure out my account. But I think one thing about Malone is, and I haven't watched this interview, but I've been watching. I heard of Malone. It was around 2 years ago, right? Not at the beginning of COVID, but at the beginning of possible vaccines on the horizon, right? And pretty much immediately, the mRNA vaccines were on the horizon, and those were the ones that really popped up and really sparked in the medical community. And you had doctors such as McAuliffe as well, even though he does speak for a lot of early treatment COVID measures. He does speak for the vaccine, and he did admit that it does stop you from getting severe illness and death if you take the vaccine. And he even said that the tech in general could be good for a lot of fields, but as far as it being on vaccine, he's just very hesitant to say the word vaccine because it depends on what you mean. But it's like, okay, so this treatment will stop you from dying. But then if you look at all the treatments that McAuliffe and a lot of these other doctors are doing, they also, reduce your chance of dying. So when you look at it like that, what's the difference? Okay, let's say there's a I'm going to say there's a 10 to 30%. And I think there was data on this. I think it's somewhere like 40% of people who get COVID are unvaccinated.
Mhm.
And then something like 50, so somewhere around that. It's a very small percentage more of people who are a very small percentage more of people who are unvaccinated who get it. So it seems to be a tad bit less transmissible, but still less transmissible when you get the vaccine. Okay, that's just what it seems like. But as the data's starting to increase, it seems like it's getting like more and more people are spreading it. So that might not even be the case in a few months. So I don't want to make any sort of like necessary statements. But the point is that you can take these monoclonal antibodies, and remember, they're not sort of permanent altering drugs. They have decades and decades of years with ivermectin, with monoclonal antibodies, with a lot of these technologies and antiviral drugs, even the Merck pill and stuff like that. They're very classical treatments, and you have years and years and years of medical safety data behind it to say, okay, this has been used this many times, and this is the side effects and stuff like that. And you don't have to take an injection every 6 months. If you get COVID, boom, you get it, and boom, you get antibodies from the COVID. Guess what? You get those antibodies, and you don't die because you're getting the treatment. So this is my thing with the vaccine, why I'm really hesitant to even say get it anymore, is because what's the difference between the vaccine and the sort of set of medical treatments that you get from that Joe Rogan would get, right? The kitchen sink, as he calls it, right? The monoclonal antibodies, the ivermectin, there was something, vitamin drips and all those stuff, the whole thing he got, right? If you're going to get that when you get COVID, and it's going to reduce your chance of dying, like by a lot, right? By a lot, especially if you're older, it's going to reduce your chance of dying. It's not a permanent altering medical procedure that has less than 3 years of medical safety literature behind it, literally less than 3 years of safety literature behind it. And who knows the long-term effect. And there are, when it comes to heart disease and when it comes to myelin pericarditis, there does seem to be a certain degree of risk from taking the vaccine. And then on the other hand, you have the monoclonal antibodies, the ivermectin, all these drugs that have been used many times on millions, billions and billions of people in ivermectin's case. And there is literally almost no side effects as far as death goes. Nothing like pericarditis and myocarditis. And it stops you from getting COVID. I just don't get it. When are we going to stop saying that, we should get the vaccine? And when are we going to start saying that there really is no difference between the vaccine treatment and the monoclonal antibody, the kitchen sink treatment? They're both treatments. They both can be administered upon COVID as soon as you get it. They should both. I mean, they can both be administered to stop you from getting COVID, to stop you from getting sick from COVID, and to stop you from getting actually get killed from COVID, which is what the vaccine does. So to me, and tell me if I'm crazy here, it just seems to be the same thing almost.
No, you're not crazy. Here's the thing, though. I can see why. I can see why certain people are going to endorse certain treatments over others, because some bring in income for them and fulfill their agendas, and some don't. So if I look at it, a lot of people look at the world from good guy, bad guy, and I look at it, these people have these incentives, so they're gonna act this way. They might cover up the incentives and say they want to do something altruistic, like, we just want to help people with our product. But really, when I get down to the nitty gritty and I look at where the money's going and the incentives are going, there's incentives to do one treatment. There's not incentives to do another thing. As one person shared the meme, the problem with natural immunity is it's free. Oh, well, I got it. It's free. Okay. Well, if I'm trying to make money, that's a big problem. You're never going to see the media like, this is a completely free way to do. You should do that. They're never going to say that. They're always going to scare you. But, scare tap, buy more things, buy what, my friend who pays me is endorsing. So aside from Malone, there's Getter if you guys want to use it. If not, that's cool. I might look into it. So let's get into the big verdict. So Ghislane Maxell is found guilty. She was found guilty basically on all counts except one. And I think that one was because it was something like just escorting someone there is not actually doing it. But she's found guilty of helping Epstein, do unspeakable acts to kids. And Epstein, as we know, died before he could be prosecuted. But what they said is, the defense said Maxwell was a scapegoat for Epstein. And they portrayed Maxwell as a predator. Now, here's the thing. There's some people like pretty excited with this. I'm actually don't view this so much as good news. I'll tell people why, without going through the whole arc, because there's a lot here. Ghislane was a very bad person. I'm not defending anything she did. But nobody, at least to my knowledge, except Epstein, that all these people in her black book, which include presidents, even some former presidents, and big names like Prince Andrew and all that, none of them are facing any kind of justice at all. Maxwell didn't even get a deal or anything to think. Yeah, she named names. She did. But none of those names she named in her black book are getting any kind of punishment at all. Nobody's really getting justice. Plus, I don't think it's in this article, but I did read the Department of Defense or whoever is saying, okay, well, the case is over. Seal away all the files. So now all the files are sealed away. So nobody's getting in trouble. And all the documents and information are once again sealed away. So is it good that Maxwell that Maxwell is guilty? Yeah, I don't disagree she's guilty. Is it bad they're censoring information? Is it bad that none of these people who did all these unspeakable acts are going to not face justice? So that's definitely the bigger problem. People can disagree with me on that. That's where I'm kind of at. Like, I don't disagree with the judge's ruling, but I kind of have a feeling what they did was like, guys, here's a little bit of bread here. Okay, she's guilty. We got her. What about the people who did all those terrible things? Don't worry about that. What about the files? Can you keep them there? Nah, we don't want you to look at it anymore. Put those behind a wall. And to me, that's not good. So overall, I'm not super, super like, wow, this is a huge victory. Without getting too far into.
Well, yeah, and the one thing that I will say is like, okay, the thing that blows my mind is that, and this is where I agree with a lot of real leftists on this. Leftists that I want to shout out. I shout out all the leftists that I think that are really good, that are fighting the liberty fight every time I can, because there's a very small minority of them now. Not that I'm saying there's necessarily a lot of great people on the right, but it's obvious to me that the right in general, and I'm not saying the far right, I'm not saying Republicans, I'm not even necessarily saying conservatives, but it's basically like you have anarcho-capitalists, you have sort of libertarians, you do have conservatives, you have the Republicans, and then you have the Trump Republicans, and then you have the bad side of the right, the far right, what I guess you could say the alt-right, but it really depends on what your definition, the neocons and the ethno-nationalists and stuff like that we don't like, right? And we disown those people, but the left, has very few people left, and it wasn't always like that. But Jimmy Dore, Jackson Hinkle, Aaron Mate, I used to watch Kyle Kalinske, but he's even he's going back and forth, that's just this thing with the left, man, is like, oh my God. So like the thing with the left that blows my mind is that so you have these people like Jimmy Dore, right, who are socialists and but they are completely for freedom, for workers' rights, and they're anti-mandate, anti-tyranny, right? Now, we disagree almost entirely economically, right? We probably have a completely different idea of what we want this economic system to be around the United States, what we want things to be, right? We disagree probably on the way to get healthcare out. Maybe we agree on fee points. But at the end of the day, he does not want to tread on me, and I don't want to tread on him. And we respect the fact that we both should be able to own guns, and we respect the basic fundamental principles of our Constitution and our even our Declaration of Independence. But you have people on the left who then swing. It's like they keep, like Cenk Uygur, for instance. It's like at one point he was really popular, and you say, why was Cenk Uygur popular? And then a lot of people will say maybe because he was one of the first people. I mean, let's be honest, Cenk was been around for years, guys, years. He's been around since like 2003 or something. So he did have sort of like the Joe Rogan effect, where he was like one of the first guys in that sort of political commentary, radio type, TV type, cable thing. But he was originally popular because he was sort of populist in a way. But then as time got on, he just became a neolib, like an absolute neolib. Like every issue that he's going on, he supports imperialism. He supports intervention. Every issue you go, Syria, Libya, all these issues, these quote unquote Democrats, these lip progressives, they're not progressives. They're no different than a conservative, except they disagree economically. Other than that, they're the same person. And even neocons nowadays say, fuck it, print as much money as you want now. So it's basically the same party. So you have these few people on the left who are still good, but that's why I really just think you should abolish the left. I think like you should just completely get rid of it right now. And I think there should be something like some party, like a populist, and this is going to be very difficult, but some like populist party where at the core it is predicated on freedom, liberty, and doing right by the voters, by the will of the people. True populism, what true populism is. And I think if you have a party like that, where you have people from the left who disagree with people on the right economically, but they all agree on liberty and tearing down the state, minimizing the state's control and their powers, I think it's unbelievable progress will be made the moment people realize that the will of the people is the universal among all people in the United States. And it has been since 1776, and it will continue to be. This country is predicated on the people and what the people do and what the people want. And that sounds really sort of stereotypical, but if you were to have a party like that, it just makes more sense to me than have like something like the People's Party, which I guess it's sort of like that, but it's not. It's like it's too left, and then you have these parties on the right. It's too right. Like have a populist party where guys like Trump, guys like, not that I love Trump, not that I agree with him on everything, but guys like Trump, guys like even Dave Smith's more of obviously he's clearly obviously a Mises guy. I'm trying to think of a good Yang, for example. You have all these left and right populist type guys who really don't fit into the left and the right, and then eventually they just sort of go independent like Yang did. But you have this one populist party, man. I think it could be good, but I don't know. It just seems like the left is gone, dude. I don't want it to be like, it's not like I'm saying that as a good thing. Like I truly believe in a lot of sort of what you would be considered standard leftist core principles, and especially when it comes to the sort of actual progressivism and reform when it comes to prison systems, when it comes to the drugs, and the legalizations of stuff like that. But the party itself is just completely corrupt. The primary's corrupt. Bernie, like, not that I love Bernie, but it's obviously it got stolen from him 2 years in a row. Look at Tulsi. Yeah. It just seems like I don't know how to say it, but it's like, I truly don't think there's a left party anymore. I think there's a far right and the radical people who just want to impose their will over everyone. And they don't fall one way on the spectrum. They're just, it's basically authoritarian. Now it differs in sort of the authoritarian wish list. Some people want, supposed Medicare for all. Some people don't. But at the end of the day, people just want to impose their policies on the others, on the majority, and they don't want to actually listen to the will of the people. And then everyone else is pretty much, far right. I'm not saying that is true. I'm just saying that's sort of what it's become in the political atmosphere right now. It's scary too, man.
Yeah, no, it is scary, and it's kind of sad because, to be honest, I came from the left, and in a way, most people did. Yeah. But I was big on Rage Against the Machine. I guess I came from the libertarian left because anarcho-punk is a libertarian left philosophy. And I started reading Crass. And the good thing is Crass is still, that I look at Steve Ignorant and Penny Rumbard, they're still anti-establishment. They talk bad about capitalism all the time, but whatever. They still believe in freedom. I think Jimmy Dore is still good. I think Jordan Peterson, who's on the left, is still good. I mean, Jordan Peterson said in the Muck debate, why are you doing all this? Oh, I want to do this so the real left can come back again, and for whatever reason. But Jordan Peterson's not a right winger. He even says, I'm not a right winger. I mean, heck, he took the medical procedure. So Jordan Peterson, Tim Pool's kind of still on the left if you really look at it.
Yeah, he definitely is, but he kind of, I don't know. The thing with Tim Pool is he kind of flip-flops here and there. Like, I think, like, he always says, like, he's for sort of a a universal healthcare system, but then he also admits that like implementing something like that isn't actually as easy as as said as it's actually done. So he admits that leftist policies, he wants them, but he also recognizes the complexity of the system and stuff like that. So I would say in a lot of areas he's definitely on the left, like in a lot of areas, but he also recognizes that with the current system, it's hard to kind of put in a lot of those policies into place. And I say if you had a functioning state that was as small as possible, as decentralized as possible, you might be able to actually put in systems that work, because it's like, okay, you get this president. Let's say we try and implement a single payer or something along those lines. Do you trust our current state to run anything? Anything? And it work well. That's the thing, is it's like, it's not that forget the sort of economic side, forget the macroeconomics and the Mises aspect of whether health insurance should be a universal right and whether there should be a single payer system. Forget that. Okay. If there was anyone who got into office and wanted to make that happen, almost at every core level, federally, I would not trust anyone to do that properly. And I would trust and almost guarantee that that would be used as a pretext to give the government more money and more power. And what are they going to do? They're going to give people dirt. Like, okay, there's going to be it's with everything the federal government does. It's like, how good is welfare, right? It's like, oh, you either have to work or we don't really give you anything. Even the welfare system, I think, could be fixed. I think it could be a lot better, man. And I think, but I don't like, I wouldn't ever vote for that, because I wouldn't vote for giving the state any more power and any more money. They can't manage a budget now. They haven't been able to manage a budget in the last 20 years. They haven't been able to work any agencies right. It's the bureaucracy that we've seen over the last 70, 80 years with the implementation of these agencies and the centralization of these agencies. And then you go into the Federal Reserve, the banking side of things. That's why right now, currently, I'm just like, get the money out of the government. I'm dead serious, dude. Like, if everyone just stopped paying taxes right now, I mean, imagine how good that would be. Like, for us, like, imagine how much power that is.
That would be awesome.
And I think that might even be a socialist argument in a lot of ways. Like, I think that might even be an argument you could say from the Marxist perspective, is like, if the bourgeoisie is taking is bearing the fruits of your labor and getting what you deserve, then why would you continue giving money as the proletariat to the bourgeoisie when they're continuing to take from you? Doesn't the Marxist doctrines call for a revolution, an uprising, violent, if not anything? So it's
the only thing I'd say is the thing to be careful is he wants you to seize the means of production. I get that. But the peasants don't want to pay for the hot. Okay, I'll say the two things Marx got right is this. Keeping your guns, because like I talked to a dude who's like, I'm a Maoist, and I'm like, what are your views on firearms? He's like, Kareem, if you go far left enough, you keep your gun. So
that's true. Yeah, well,
that's good.
Yeah,
Marx got that part right, and he got the part right. Okay, if the bourgeoisie is not doing what you want, then the proletariat, you can say, hey, I'm not going to incentivize you, but that's not necessarily, to me, all the way Marx, because he's going to say you'd still have to put resources and monetary gains in the hands of the state. But I think there's still a few leftists out there that are doing good work. I mean, there's Tulsi Gabbard. There is Bernie Sanders is okay on foreign policy. I haven't watched Dave Pacman in a very long time.
I think he sort of flip-flopped. And forgive me if I'm saying this, but I remember he went on Rogan. It was like probably over a year, maybe 2 years ago now. It's actually
pretty.
But I feel like he had kind of. I could be wrong in saying this, but I feel like he sort of entertained the whole mandate perspective. He might have changed his views on that. I could be wrong, because I don't watch Pacman that often. But the last time I checked, he was sort of embracing the sort of mandates and stuff like that on the left. If he's not anymore, okay, whatever. I'm just saying the last I heard, I think he was going towards that, similar to Noam Chomsky, who said basically let the unvaccinated fend for themselves, let them be alone, let them basically have to live by themselves and not have to enter not have public facilities, not be able to go out into restaurants. They basically need to fight for themselves. And that's that. They should be basically considered as second-class citizens. And this is coming from Noam Chomsky, one of the most prominent leftists, who's supposed to be completely anti-establishment. And if you were to realize, if you were really anti-establishment and you really wanted to support the workers and you really saw what the federal government was doing alongside corporation to crush small businesses and crush the working class in all aspects, and then with these mandates, that's going to continue to crush the working class. Because do you think the rich are going to care about whether there's these mandates or not? It's going to be the working class who are going to have to make a choice between a medical procedure and their damn child and food on the table. And believe it or not, I think a lot of people will choose the latter. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I know a lot of people who will not get a medical procedure. They're willing to fight. Now, how many of those people are there? I'm not entirely sure, but I do know that this idea that you can just keep pushing people to their brink, and this is probably intentional on the side of government and on the side of our politicians and medical experts who have probably talked to many behavioral psychologists and know that it's the sort of go in, sort of tighten up, then release, tighten up, then release. And even I think it was the CDC who recently said that we were doing policy to see what people would put up with, something along those lines recently. I believe it was the CDC or the NIH who said basically for this whole time, our policy has been what people will put up with. And you can look that up. I can't remember the exact words. I'm pretty sure that was basically saying that, what we've been doing is, okay, we're going to see what the people are willing to stand and what they're willing not to stand with. And this has been the case in the West. And it turns out the West was much more likely to submit than I think any of us ever thought, especially when you look at a place like Australia. I mean, they've completely submitted into tyranny. Now, I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying, dude, it's tough because you have to look at things. And it's like, if there's like let's just say some sort of an internment camp, like those COVID camps in Australia, let's just say the same exact things, and they're getting built in your area. Do you destroy them?
No.
Do you destroy them? Like, what do you do, man? Because like, I don't know. Like, looking back now, I think we could all say the people getting on those cargo trains in Nazi Germany, that we would have wanted them to kill those people, right? Those Nazis, those guards. We would have wanted them to be armed, right? We would have wanted them to not going to say it, we would have wanted them to be extremely violent to those people because they were getting ready to kill a generation of people. So I think about that, and it's tough to think about, and it was probably even tougher then. But if it comes down to it, you do not get on that train car. And if it comes down to a bullet and tyranny, I'm choosing the bullet every time, because tyranny will not only hurt more, it will hurt generations and generations much more. So if I can take the bullet, but the generation under me gets to live in freedom and liberty and prosperity, I'm willing to take the bullet. And I think that should be the mindset of everyone. Like, you cannot sacrifice long-term generational freedom and liberty for short-term safety and security. Similar to that I'm trying to think of that quote. The quote that Malice quotes all the time. I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah, I think H.L. Mencken.
Yeah, Mencken. That's who it is.
Yeah, it's who you're talking to. And yeah, we need to expose things like what's going on in Australia. And yeah, I think the DNC should be gone. I don't know if you get rid of the whole left, because there's people who have that idea. But the thing I wish is there's a populist versus, an establishment thing there. And a lot of these YouTubers, I don't watch anymore, even though I used to watch. The only other one I don't know too much is Sam Cedar. I watched him debate a guy who was explaining anarcho-capitalism, but not very well. I don't know if jump in a guy's shoes and be like, "Hey, Sam, let's debate." But I don't know Sam's politics. Really.
He's not good. Let's just put it like that. Me and Sam disagree on everything. He lied, completely openly lied about the whole Tim Pool thing. And Tim Pool showed receipts on a show about Sam Cedar messaging him. Basically, Sam Cedar said he had, quote unquote, wanted to get on Tim Pool's show, but Tim would let him get on. And then Tim Pool did a whole video showing private DMs, and basically Sam Cedar had made a Twitter post saying, something along the lines of, why don't you let me come on your show? And then in the Twitter comments, it had said, Tim Pool was like, I'll fly you out here and we'll do it like here. And everything was direct on Twitter, public. And then Sam ended up in messages texting him, it's going to be in person, but he had already known in public. So he was trying to basically make a play, put up a show for his fans. Like he wanted to debate. And then in private DMs, he was like, it's going to be in person. I thought, what about COVID? And then he's like, I can't do that. But Tim had already showed him and then basically lied. And then you had Sam on his show saying it was Tim who did that, basically completely projecting. So that's why I don't like Sam. He's a liar. I don't like to use the term grifter because it gets thrown around a lot, but listen, he's a shapeshifter. That's who he's a shapeshifter, and he's pro-mandate, pro-establishment, and he's a basic. I wouldn't necessarily call him a neolib, but pretty damn close.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree Vosh is kind of the same thing, in the same boat with Sam, except Vosh is pretty articulate. But when I tried to debate Vosh on social media, it just folded quickly. So the people don't actually seem to fold. They're like minarchists, and we can go back and forth, which is good. So that said, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what's going on. But that's a good point you brought there. I'll actually bring something up at the end of the show after we're offline just to get your thoughts on that. So without that being said, let's keep going. So I guess Boba Fett stores out, or Jango Fett, I forget which one. But if you want to be a bounty hunter, apparently the state's cool with that in Austria. What is Austria doing? I know this is a little bit older. This is
no way.
Insane. Luke Radowski brought this up, and in this day and age, I'm like, yeah, nothing surprises me anymore. But I still am like, let me look into it, because I heard the thing in Australia going on about the can. I'm like, this needs to be exposed. That's why I said don't just destroy them initially. We need to expose it now that we have social media. And now that we have social media, we need to expose this. So Austrian City is hiring workers to administer fines, not hunt people who didn't get the procedure. So, because initially it said they were hunting, and I said, let me wait and see.
See, I don't like how they do that, though, because when you say bounty hunter, it's not like they're going to be hunting and killing people. About all a bounty hunter does is try and locate people. And sometimes bounty hunters don't even have to physically restrain anybody. They'll just get people to turn themselves in. So
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's why I use that term.
Yeah.
Because you see Dog the bounty hunter, and people oh yeah, he's gonna go track a dude. And sometimes
sometimes it is like that, but not always.
Sometimes it'd be like that, but most of the time what I see they do is they're like, hey, look, I caught you, this
yeah, exactly, yeah,
this. And this is kind of what they're doing here. They're not like, oh, I have a gun, kick down your door, did you get a medical procedure? It's like, knock knock, hey, guess what, we know that you haven't got this. It's like, I did. No, you haven't. Oh, okay. And I'm simulating this. Well, I didn't get this. I don't want to get it. Well, here's a $500 fine. I wasn't bothering anybody. I don't care. Oh, I don't want to pay that. Well, then it'll be $1,000, then this, then this, then this. Then we'll come get you. So it's kind of like the whole pay your mandatory voluntary taxes trick. Well, you don't have to get it. You don't have to do it, but we're going to fine you into oblivion until you have no financial thing left. Then we'll put you in jail, but you don't have to get it. So here's what's going on, to my knowledge. The Austrian government is hiring people to go to inhabitants who have not got their medical procedure. And basically what is going on is, in the city's advertisements about some new openings, some Twitter users posted a screenshot of an English translation of the original headline, which said, Austria is looking for employees to come find people who refuse this medical procedure. And they changed that word, but here's what's going on, in my opinion. The characterization of the jobs is misleading, according to the thing. Linz is hiring administrative staff to process fines. that will be issued to people who didn't get a medical procedure as part of Austria's mandate. The positions don't actually involve hunting people down, but what they're saying is, like in other cities, the city of Linz is looking for staff to look at proceedings within a reasonable time frame. The employees are being sought and trained in advance so that the administrative procedures are carried out in a timely manner. The Austrian government announced details of its planned medical procedure in December and will be imposed on all residents age 14 and over starting February 1st, 2022, just a month away. Those who aren't already or have this procedure are exempt from retirement will face fines of up to 3,600 euros, roughly $4,000. Fines can be administered every 3 months for those who continue to refuse to get these medical procedures. Martin Weiss, Austrian ambassador to the U.S., also characterized the claims as misleading. They said one ad. Now they're saying this is not a job ad. It's a job ad that the city looks for someone who works in the tax and duties departments. Governments regularly employ people who enforce their laws. It's what countries do. Once the requirements to get this procedure is part of our laws, then those laws will be enforced, like wearing a seatbelt in a car. Okay, so I will say this. I think the initial Twitter thing was wrong where they're like, okay, I'm going to send Django Fett to kick down your door and be like, did you get your medical procedure? But this is still hardcore tyranny. Like, this is soft, but it's soft tyranny. Like, okay, well, I love the argument. You don't have to do it. Okay, you don't have to pay your taxes, someone told me. I remember actually before this whole COVID thing started, I told a lady and they actually, I think they were conservative, actually. I said, well, I think taxation is theft. I'm like, Kareem, it's not theft. I'm like, why is it not theft? Oh, because, well, you agreed to work, right? I'm like, I agreed to work. She's like, yeah, because you're working, we can take taxes out. It's kind of,
what kind of argument is that?
Yeah, I'm like, really? And then she kept
Good luck
going.
with that.
I wasn't able to counter her argument by saying, hey, you can't sign a social.
That just shows you, though, the mentality of like modern people. Just think about how warped it is, that you think that working is inherently connected with taxation.
Yes.
That's an absurd sort of proposition to make. And the reason why it's so absurd is that working in general, outputting your labor is creating generally some sort of a product, and in a lot of cases, some sort of a resource, which then that product or resource is then going to get distributed to another place that carries products and resources generally. And then those from that bigger, larger area with those product and resources, that is then going to get distributed to other people. And this idea that labor in general, like there's not even a biological, financial, and psychological like objective argument you can make for taxation, point blank, period, unless it's voluntary. Point blank. What philosophical, fundamental, psychological, biological, socioeconomical argument are you going to make to me to make the proposition that work and taxation are implicitly together involuntarily? They're not like taxation is only voluntary. If it is not, which that's why the word taxation, I don't even like that word in general. If you voluntarily agree to reward someone for whether it be a transferring of goods or a transferring of services and labor, you voluntarily consent to share your product with someone else or many others. And anything other than that isn't taxation, it's theft, as far as I'm concerned.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what they're doing here. They're saying, oh, okay, we're not sending people to go grab we're more humane than that. It's just part of our laws now. So you're going to have to pay $4,000 every 3 months. So
that's crazy.
So we're going to bankrupt you in Austria if you don't get it. That's really what they're saying. If you don't,
they're legitimately saying that if you don't get it, you're going to have to pay $4,000. Are you serious?
Every 3 months.
Every 3
So-
months. Like
so
if you're a standard
12,000
for employees or just all citizens?
well, what it says is will be imposed on all residents aged 14 and over.
What?
So-
14? 14?
Yeah, those who
That's
haven't
not even
already
an
gotten-
adult. How can 14-year-olds pay $4,000? Dude,
uh,
what the hell? Wait, hold
Yeah.
on. I must have this mistaken. So you're telling me people who are 14 years old will have to pay $4,000 every month or every 2-3 months if as long as they don't get the vaccine?
That's
How's
my
that?
understanding of this. Now, you can definitely.
What?
One thing I say is don't take. I get my sources from other people's sources, from Luke, from other. So don't take my word for it. I looked at a telegram and I read through this.
It's crazy.
I think AP is okay. I think the Associated Press is okay.
They're definitely, yeah. They can be good, but it really just they do sometimes have what seems like to be some sort of bias, a Soros bias, I say.
Oh, they definitely do. Look, I'm not even saying any news outlet's good. I'm not saying I'm inherently good. I'm saying, like, definitely if you watch this, check it with like 3 other sources. But if they're saying the same thing, but it wouldn't put this, I wouldn't put this kind of tyranny past governments, because to me, that's how they do things nowadays. They don't outright force you to do it. They say, hey, if you don't do it, okay, you don't have to do it, but we're going to take everything away from you. The whole Facebook meme, we're not saying you have to consent. We're just taking away everything you have until you do. So that's the problematic thing here. Also, Quebec is in serious trouble. Quebec is bringing back nightly curfews, or they're basically reinstating their lockdown. They're bringing back, curfews. Private gatherings are prohibited. As they're saying, as cases rise. Now, I'm not going to say cases aren't rising, but there's always that big question: how many of them are actually, what is the mortality rate, or are people just getting it? So Quebec in Canada is bringing back its controversial overnight curfew beginning Friday at 10 p.m., which is New Year's Eve. So basically right now, Quebec Premier Francois Legault made the announcement Thursday amid increasing hospitalizations and exponential growth in Rona, driven by Omicron. Oh, so scary. Oh, wait, didn't South African scientists tell people to chill? But also beginning on Friday, private gatherings in homes will be prohibited. Only people who live alone or need caregivers will be allowed to join another family bubble. Dining rooms at restaurants will be closed, but takeout and delivery options will continue. The province reported a record-breaking 14,188 infections and an increase of 135 pandemic-related hospitalizations for a total of 939 patients, including 138 in intensive care. Legault said the number of cases to be published Friday is above 16,000. The more optimistic scenario, based on the average rates, shows that COVID hospitalizations could reach 1,600 in the next 3 weeks, while those in intensive care could jump to 300. Basically, what he said is, our experts tell us there's a risk we won't be able to treat everyone, all those who need it in the coming weeks. I know we're all tired, but it's my responsibility to protect all ourselves from this. This is why I'm announcing new restrictions as of tomorrow. And Quebec is the only province in Canada to have imposed a curfew during the pandemic. So we're not doing this for fun, but out of necessity to save our network and save lives. Yes, the government cares about saving lives. Okay.
I mean, since when was it okay to impose a curfew on grown adults? Do you realize why curfew was even brought about in the first place when it comes to minors? Is because it's generally agreed that people, and I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with this but over time, society had sort of came up with the construct that children shouldn't be out past a certain time. And if there's children out past a certain time, the probability of them doing something that children shouldn't do is probably high. So we're going to set these curfews and to try and mitigate the amount of kids who are outside past a certain time doing things that children should do. Generally, that doesn't necessarily mean someone who gets a curfew violation is going to go to jail or even get charged, right? Generally speaking, you get a curfew violation, you get it drop down and you get a slap on the wrist, generally speaking, if you're a kid. But the reason why we had that for children is because children are children, and at past 1 or 2 o'clock, what's a 13-year-old doing out on the street in New York City, right? It's not safe. Would you want your 12-year-old girl out there? So I could see a case for it if society mutually agrees on this sort of thing. And we're like, okay, we all agree, let's do it. But grown adults, 18 years old, people who can enter the Army and enter the Air Force and drive a jet, enter the Army and hold a rifle, join the Marines and cut people's throats, be a SEAL and rip and snipe people's heads off, own a gun, drink, right? Depending on your 18 or 21, drink, smoke weed, in a lot of states, smoke cigarettes. It's like, so those people can't go outside past a certain time. You understand how sort of infantile that is, and how abnormal that is, and how ridiculous that sounds. It's the infantilizing of adults. It really is. And if you let people tell you when to go to bed, if you keep letting people tell you when to go to bed, if you keep letting people tell you where you're going to bed, if you keep letting people tell you how you're going to bed, they will run your life. They will continue to run your life. They will have this power, and they will see that you're submitting through this one metric. This is one form of submission for them, right? They're your abuser. This is a form of submission to see if you are going to comply with going to bed at night like a child does. If you're going to comply to this, well, then the abusers, but let's just say the politicians in Quebec will say, okay, we had this many people comply with this policy. Since that's the case, let's try and implement a little more restrictive policy, and let's see how they comply to that. Okay, they didn't comply as much. Let's pull back. Then let's go back. And this is what they're going to keep doing. And it's crazy, because don't let any other grown person tell you when to go to bed. You're a grown adult. It's ridiculous. The notion of it is absolutely absurd. Just think about it. Curfew. For grown men, for grown women, for people who are 21 years old, and we in this society predicate everything off of not necessarily individual responsibility, but individual autonomy. The fact that individuals know who they are best and can take the responsibility necessary with the rights that they have. And the key right is for them to pursue happiness and to pursue their goals, whatever that may be, and enjoy themselves, right? And we trust the individual to do this. And it doesn't mean that they're always going to do what they're supposed to do, but you cannot infantilize a society like this, not grown adults. It's not good. It's one of those things where it's like, you go to bed when I say go to bed. It's like, no, what makes you think you can tell me to go to bed? It's like, what gives you that right? What gives you that power? Except the fact that you're behind an office right now with a D or an R, or I guess an L or a D, or I'm not sure the parties in Quebec, but something like that next to your name, and that's it. And a certain amount of people voted for you. That's what gives you the right to tell me when to go to bed. No, that's not how any sort of how Western societies were predicated on. And it's definitely because I'm not 100%. I'm not as well read on English common law as I am on American law, but American law is predicated off of English common law, and the idea of English common law is the same predicate for American law. So it's just completely against English common law. It's completely against everything that people in Europe fought for to get their rights. And I can't believe the French are putting. I can't believe the French are putting up with this, because in Quebec, there's the majority of the people there are French, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of French Canadians in Montreal and Quebec, and they really pride themselves on that. And they're generally pretty defiant. Like we see France, they're fairly defiant. Even more, like there were people, commentators who were like looking at this, like, what are you doing in the U.S.? Like I had to. All the crowds in France, I'm like, yeah. And then we have one with the Mises Caucus, and then there's a few people there and a couple Trumpsters and a bunch of constitutionalists. And maybe we had like a third of those people, or not even a third, like maybe a 15th of those people there. So this is crazy to me that, a premier would do something like this and people would just be like, yep,
I know. Just tell me when to go to bed. It's so ridiculous.
I can't go out to the nightclub. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't go out. Like, no, people need to start saying no in Quebec. This is a problem, and they need to start saying no. People have to, like, this is ridiculous to me. Also, places of worship can remain open with a maximum of 25 people. Like, no.
Oh, really? See,
yeah. Start fighting back. Start fighting back. Like, people in Quebec need to say no. You know what? I'm going to see whoever I want to see, when I want to see them, how I want to see them. You know, it's not fair that only people who live alone or need caregivers can join another family bubble. Do something about it. And here's why. Because if you don't, you end up like this. So you said New York City, you don't want like kids out there, which is ironic because this is the last story. So viral video shows mom and kid kicked out of restaurant.
I saw this. This was
due to not having medical procedure documentation. So when it comes to controversies surrounding these Rona mandates.
Oh my God, I just realized it's 12:37. Happy New Year. It is now 2022. Trump is now the president of the United States of America. Biden has just passed away, and he had just gone into a demented heart attack, and all the QAnon rumors are true. Epstein's alive. Maxwell just got freed. Happy 2022. Free Ghislane.
Yes. And Kennedy's alive too, but Cheeto just realized that he ain't too good no more. So Dave Smith is now president. The ATF's gone. We all have private militias. I'm going to join tomorrow under Governor Solosky. I'm going to make my own battalion. That'll be fun. And
don't let it be another year of COVID tyranny. That's my my motto for 2022. Yeah. Do not let 2022 be another year of COVID tyranny. Stop it. And the thing is like, I get it. We all probably left on the right. We're like, the CIA is bad, right? What the hell do they do that's good? And we can, they're behind the scenes doing humane things. No, the majority of what the CIA does is fundamentally corrupt. But I get it. You're going to try and fight and take down the CIA. Good luck with that. I get that. So it's hard to fight that sort of agency. You need to be organized. But in this sense, when you're talking about things like curfew, when you're talking about things like restaurants, all you have to do is do what you normally would do. All you have to do is literally just do not comply. The curfew's 12, go out past 12.
Yeah.
Right? Don't be violent. Yeah. Don't physically get into an assault with an officer. If an officer puts your hands on you, let him beat you up, because at the end of the day, when the video cameras are on, because they're going to be on, and when the scenes get captured, it's going to be officers beating you up, and you're going to be the one who didn't use violence, and the rest of the world will see that. So mass noncompliance. If they tell you to go to bed, make sure you stay up all night long, right? Make sure if they tell you to close your restaurant, you open your restaurant 24/7, right? It should be constant civil disobedience. It should be constant in your face. We are not going to put up with this tyranny, no matter what. And it shouldn't even be a question, right? If they tell you to close your business, you keep your hours, you keep your business open. No, absolutely no questions, because if even there's even a sliver of submissiveness on your side, they're going to take that as weakness, and they're going to use that as a pretext to add more restrictions in and to make your life more miserable. So just remember, a little bit of pressure and a little bit of suffering in the short term will have a lot of prosperity in the long term. So under
President Smith, I just bought an Abrams with some Dogecoin so I can fight back. So that's one of the perks. So anyway, what happened is she went to a restaurant, couldn't show the Rona documentation. They were basically the NYPD went to a table where they were seated, and then they said they had to leave. So what happened? We can actually see what happened here.
Just basically saying that you can't serve, otherwise if you're not going to face it, you have the card. I know. If you don't have it, then you're going to have to leave. And if not,
Wow. Scaring a child, traumatizing a child. Hope you feel good about yourself, NYPD. This is disgusting. This is gross.
You guys failed us last night. You failed us last night. You all failed us. We're here for you and your kids.
Disgraceful.
You failed.
You failed yourself, NYPD. You failed yourself. Is this what you signed up for? Is this what justice looks like for you? Is this what you dreamed of when you wanted to be a cop?
This is common strong. You have facts so you can come in. You kill yourself to live. You kill yourself to live. Look at this.
Right, unless you have vaccination cards, all right, you have to exit the restaurant, all right? If you leave voluntarily, all right, you will not be pressed, there will not charges pressed against you. Otherwise, you will be arrested for trespass, all right? This will be your only warning, please.
Yeah, a child crying is funny, right, for you?
All right. So that is what happened. As I've said before, like, you can make the good cop, bad cop argument. But what I'd say is if you're serving a fundamentally corrupt system, then it's not going to work because there's no incentive to do good. So my actual position is police are one of two things, one of three things. They're civilians like me and you with firearms. You can pay them in crypto or money. There's something like threat management in Detroit, which is kind of a private service. Or if you want to retain the police, you get a sheriff. And you make sure the sheriff is electable, because if you have an electable sheriff and something like that happens, bet you the sheriff's going to get a complaint. If the sheriff keeps letting that go on, he's not going to get elected. Basically, what I'm saying is the whole what matters. Well, public sector jobs don't matter that much to me. You could get rid of all of them tomorrow and privatize them. And if they don't have any usefulness, then you don't even need to privatize them. But definitely privatize the police. Refund the sheriff is my message. So we saw what happened there. He said, like, this will be your only warning. The policeman said, this is why people need to start saying no. Because if you don't stop, and if you don't, like, actually, like you're saying, actually resist, even if someone does get, a little bit like or aggressive, then they're going to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. Like these people at the NYPD. And I've heard cops explain their thing. Sometimes they just become machines and like, they gave me an order. This is what I'm doing. They're not sitting there like, well, they gave me an order, but let me open the Manichaean ethics. Oh, but Aristotle says here there's a higher thing than duty, so I'm not going to do that. They're not gonna like pull out Plato's The Republic and be like, or Kant's category. They're not gonna go through Kant's categorical imperative at the NYPD. They don't know what that is. I'll bet all my tether on that, which
I'll bet all my tether.
I'll bet all my tether. So that's why people should say no. Last but not least, let's do a year-end review of the medical procedure to see how good it did. Because everybody's telling you to get it. I just want to let people know. Here's what we got. Real quick, how cases filed in 1 year. And just keep in mind, these are super underreported. 900,000, 758. Now, how many mortalities were reported in 1 year? 20,622. So, how many does it have? Well, just let's break this down. How many did they have for every one case reported if you want to do the math? Well, based on the FDA approving it, 9,282 for one bad case. And basically for this specific medical procedure, 5 for one adverse case. How many administered for one death report? In this case, 23,615 for one death. Everybody saw what it is. Look, I'm not going to tell people what to do because I ultimately believe in freedom. I'm just going to say, if you're questioning, should I not? go to this data, which is underreported. Let me just say, this is underreported. A lot of people don't know how to use this system. I don't know how to use this system. I could figure it out because I've been working on it too, but I don't know how to use it. So I think this is something to keep in mind.
It's fairly easy. You go to VAERS, you basically go on the reporting section, and it's going to give you a layout for like different vaccines. The layout should automatically be formatted as soon as you go in. You just have to, you can choose whether you want to see just deaths, whether you want to see certain different injuries, whether you want to see hospitalizations, and it's pretty easy to actually work through. I did it a while ago, but yeah. Anyways.
Okay, maybe it is easy, but you got to remember what's easy to me and you might not. Like, I think StreamYard's easy, but there's a lot of people who are older, maybe a lot of older doctors, and they're like, oh, technology, a mouse.
Yeah, it does look complicated. Like the thing when you go on it, I couldn't figure it out right away, but I looked at a video and I was like, oh, the only thing I wasn't doing right is like you had to put the amount of the certain time frame, and I just wanted to see the all time. So yeah, but if there's a video, matter of fact, go on YouTube and look up VAERS data. There's this YouTube channel that all they do every week is report the new VAERS data when it comes to deaths, hospitalization. Just look it up on YouTube real quick. It's just look up VAERS. I'll see it, the profile as soon as you look it up. Go down. Go down. Right there. That one right there. So I follow this channel a lot because every week, I'm pretty sure they're still doing it. They report the VAERS data. So, you know, they're actually really good at doing it. All they do is literally take screenshots and snippets of VAERS itself. So if you want to look at that every week and get an idea of what's going on, I think right now we're at somewhere around 9,000 deaths or something. Last time I checked. So that may not sound like a lot. I get it. Millions of vaccines administered. The reason why it's sort of, it is the reason why it is kind of worrisome is that is a lot more than a lot of other vaccines, which have been administered to a lot more people. So you have to look at it in terms of historical sense, like other vaccines, which have been like the flu vaccine, like the H1N1 vaccine, like influenza, like all these other vaccines that have been administered to a lot of people over a lot of time. And they haven't had as much deaths as this COVID vaccine has, which is like, well, why? I mean, we got to start asking the questions. Why? Well, I'm not entirely sure, but maybe this thing, maybe we rushed it a little bit, and maybe there's more adverse effects than we thought there originally was. And I think really what it comes down to is I think a large portion of the population just doesn't need to take this vaccine. I think that's really when you look at it. But when you have doctors, like McAuliffe says, who are feared and scared to treat and to diagnose, and they're scared, they're hesitant, they're not sure. Then you have doctors like they just don't know what to do. And you have people who are children getting this vaccine. When they they have a higher chance of having an adverse reaction to it than even getting COVID and getting really critically sick at all. So I think the idea of vax everyone, for one, I don't think that's right, because there's people who cannot get this vaccine because of health reasons and because of allergies, but there's people who don't know they can't get this vaccine. There's how many people do we know who have unknown allergies, right? Lots of people have allergies to stuff. So the idea that you go ahead.
No, what I'll say to you, just to kind of is maybe I have a sneaking suspicion why this happened, but I'm not going to say why. I think I know. It might have something to do with this guy's beliefs. See, I didn't know, but like you can kind of guess why. I think like this doesn't surprise me maybe as much to ask the question, because I have a very, very strong inclination. From my perspective, I have a strong inclination why this data may be higher than other data sets for other procedures, because there might be some underlying beliefs about certain things. All right. With that being said, that's basically all I got for the show. So thank you for tuning in. I'm on Daniel's YouTube channel. You can come check out the Quantum Effect. Subscribe, show him some love here. He has a lot of good topics that we've talked about, me and him, and some really good ones with Beta and Moti, Peter, and some interesting stuff about Bill Gates, Tesla, Fauci, and all the rest of it. if you want to
And
support our work.
I am, just so everybody knows who's listening to that, I am currently on a 6-day ban right now because of a video I did with a integrative psychologist from the UK and a nice lady from London and a nice lady from Canada. We went heavy on big pharma. We talked about Vioxx, which Rogan talked about. We talked about Oxycontin. We talked about benzodiazepams. We talked about over medication, over diagnosing. We talked about all of the faults of big pharma. And that video is taken down off YouTube, and I did get a strike for it. But the video will be back up on. I think I'm going to try and put it up on Facebook and see how they feel about it, and then afterwards, I'm going to put the video up for sure on Anchor, which it will be available for my subscriber only. And I think what I might do is I might make it as my first real video for my subscriber only on Anchor, because stuff like that, I think I'm just going to do and put it on there for my sub only, because I just can't listen. Although I don't like YouTube and I don't like, I'm it's not that I'm afraid to say these things. It's that YouTube is a really good platform for growing myself. And if I get taken off YouTube, that's going to suck because I put in a lot of work in there, so I want everyone to hear the truth and hear all the information and the transparency, but you can find it at Anchor. I'm going to put all those podcasts that are really, pushing the barrier of controversy onto Anchor on my subscriber only. So.
All right, sounds good. And yeah, I will do the same with that, Odyssey and Rumble. You can also find my work at The Essential Libertarians. A lot of different podcasts I've done with Daniel and with other individuals talking about liberty. And again, last but not least, if you want to bring in the new year with a strong push for liberty, check out the LP Mises Caucus. I am Kareem, your host of The Essential Libertarians, bringing you the tools you need for self-governance. I will see you guys next time. Do not let 2022 keep going with this. Make it the year where you fight back against mandates, tyranny, and government and state oppression. All right.
And
Bring
have a
in the
good
new